So this is our 19. We have 5 hours left. Grab whatever you can. We started from New Zealand early today. So it's then we go to Asia, Africa, Europe, and Americas. So why we are doing this? Because we believe that local communities have impactful values to global communities. So we have 20 talks in 2 tracks. Just a little bit of housekeeping, Jenine?
Yes.
We have 20 talks in 2 tracks. The first, we have 2 categories. The first is UX in practice, which is more practical. And the second one is more on strategy. So that is under elevating UX. In total, we have 6 keynotes and 8 workshops. To those who just joined us, in this session, we are going to give you an opportunity to be on stage with Jenine later. So just press on the button, at the bottom button, where you can see the hand gesture if you have questions, and feel free to actually press the button on the emojis as well as on the CC. So if you want some kind of subtitle, that's great. So to those who just joined in, can you please show us some kind of word, drop us where you are from, what time is it over there, what is the weather looks like on the chat. So that will be on your right hand side. So feel free, if you have any questions popped up on your mind, just go to the Q&A tab and give us some questions. So our lovely speaker for today is Jenine Lurie. She is the founder for the Humans and Service Design Meetup. So if you are interested in meeting with her later on, you can always go to her meetup. Grace Lau is writing it down in the chat. And also her LinkedIn account is also there. So Jenine will also share the LinkedIn account. So without further ado, I would like to invite Jenine. I will disappear in a bit, so I will be back later on. Enjoy the session.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction, and welcome everyone. This is amazing. Like, it's such a pleasure and a privilege to me to be here at the closing of the 24 Hours in UX. This is just simply one of my favorite events of the year. I was at the last one, and I've been very inspired by it ever since. So I hope that I share with you today something that you also find to be inspiring and take with you, and maybe, learn some better design practices, or just, start to think about some very, very big issues that obviously hit us all over the last year around service design, around being proactive in our communities, at work, how we, modify, change, pivot, if you will. Like today, there was the talk about the agile work environment, and how I love what Jeff Gotha said about, not about adopting a new platform and a new process. It's about being able to swerve and realign and stop something and do something differently in a practice if it's not going well. And I think this past year has really taught us that more than anything else. So just to say, everyone in the chat, please, introduce yourselves, tell us where you're from. If you have anything you'd like me to talk about as I present these slides, or any questions around them, or any thoughts or feelings, please stop, use your emoji thingy, and let's have a conversation, because we have a small group. I guess I'm pretty fortunate that we do have just about 22 people so far, though maybe more people join, but that's small enough to have a really nice group interaction discussion between us, because I'm not only here to present my work to you, but I'm super, super curious about your experience with the vaccine, or with COVID, or the past year, and how you've had to pivot your life around. But just, a big round of yes, we're here, and we're going to continue on together. So I run a meetup called Humans in Service Design, and by default, in my opinion, if you are here, you are a human in service design. That's what we do. We are designing services for people, either as a project manager, UX designer, or whatever title you are. End of day, you are human, and we are designing services. So that is my meetup, and I think we're just going to jump right into the presentation. So as we all know, COVID-19 is among us, and we do know about that it is extremely contagious. It has no boundaries and can spread from people who show no symptoms. It's scary and has stressed a lot of people the fuck out. So it's been a hard year, certainly for all of us. The disease has had a systematic effect on society, culture, and the economy. All these things are resilient enough to quickly bounce back once restrictions are lifted. And we've already seen signs of that. I'm out in Southern California in the Orange County area. I just got back from New York City, and it's super, super interesting to see how the city culture is re-emerging after a year of COVID lockdown. And in my opinion, it's the emotional and psychological toll for people with children that has been the most heartbreaking. You know, how many of us have seen signs like this, and just completely stressed out parents and little kids in mass, and what happened, like how and why, and oh my God, it gets me like an emotional way, and the stress levels, and how do you explain this to a child, let alone ourselves, you know, wrapping our brains and minds and hearts around it. So really tough stuff all around, and things that have really, like, I think it is in a way stretched us to very far boundaries that who knew that we would ever be able to go. So you know, we all have a story to share. And again, you know, raise your hand or shout out loud, whatever, interrupt if you'd like to chime in here. And this one is about me. It's very unique because I am in an area that has operationalized very quickly in terms of providing vaccines for everybody. It is extremely hyper-localized. There's no two regions that are doing it alike, it seems. But I will share with you what I went through here with Orange County Healthcare Association. And they're the ones that really put this together. So when I went through it, I just thought it was such a beautiful representation of very, very elegant service design, in the fact that it aligned really the digital experience against the physical experience. There was no disconnect there. They were very, very closely in parallel. And that is, you know, something that I know as designers, we are trying to do more and more, because sometimes there's a promise from a physical experience, but the digital experience just leaves people, you know, in the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of about, you know, aligning that digital experience touch point with the actual physical experience, and then, you know, moving through it. So let's start just really quickly. I just wanted to lay down some groundwork. You know, 4 pillars of communication: write in spoken English, plain old English language, use language and idioms that are local to the culture. And that's very important too. I'm here in Southern California. You know, what resonates here with this community may not resonate in a place like Minnesota or New York or anywhere else in the States for the most part, even Northern California. You know, we are very, very hyper localized. And that is one thing that this pandemic over the year has really taught us, like how important our very, very hyper-localized communities are to us, and how we do speak that same language. Chunk it up, break things into break up multiple tasks into unique, separate sections. You know, even look at app design, right? Every single action, every single task is its own screen. Use, you know, that this sort of chunking, you know, that we've all learned from basic information architecture for the most part, and how to break information up, especially complex information. Provide relevant icons and illustrations when you can, and to communicate critically important information to a threatened audience, who we really were. Create a visual display that is elegant, clear, and on brand. So, this is an example of how they did it, and this is really what I'm referring to. So the chunking of information, like clearly labeled, there's relevant illustrations. The writing is very human to human writing, and we're starting to see more and more, especially in areas of automation where you're getting this human or computer to human interaction, which just feels awful. So be sure, like, you're writing to people and you're using plain old simple English. So, you know, this is, again, my personal experience, or how I learned to love and deeply appreciate good design and the work we do, because the work we do is so incredibly relevant. It's so impactful, and, you know, this is proof of it. So I'm thinking of, like, going backwards, right? So on the left, the image is kind of where we all want to be, you know, drinking, having fun, being with the people we love. But on the right was the harsh reality of what it was. And again, things have lit up a lot, at least here. So the flying experience, you know, terrified look in people's eyes. That is JFK Airport at 8 p.m. I don't know if anybody would ever believe this. It really is a historical moment to see JFK just that empty. And, you know, wow, once in a lifetime chance. So I just wanted to, you know, kind of walk back on the communication loop from the app. So at the first time I was registered, but I wasn't eligible, which was super interesting because I had to hack the app to become eligible for the vaccine. So I went back and did it again. I gave it some thought because everybody's like, you should be able to get that vaccine, because I care for my mother who's like 87 years old. So I didn't even consider myself as a caretaker, but in fact I really am, because I see the person like pretty often. So I went back and redid it, and I kind of hacked out a different email address, and then boom, as soon as I said I was a caretaker, they allowed me to get into the queue for the vaccine. I got a very positive note back from them. So the next milestone was really, I was approved to book the appointment, and that didn't happen very much later in the sequence of time. And then there was a confirmation of the appointment, and it gave me very, very clear instructions about what I needed to do, where I need to go, and what to expect from this appointment. And I guess as I go through the slides, I will come back to the comments afterwards. So even though some of you have been commenting or contributing, don't feel that it hasn't been noticed. But I'm going to just kind of roll through my my script here. So here, I wanted to just like give a very kind of detailed heuristic evaluation of what this app looks like and feels like. And in fact, this says congratulations, it's the end state, because obviously I couldn't replicate prior state. So I created this presentation after getting the vaccination. But the idea being that, like, I'm just showing what the message shedder feels like. So it's not telling me anything that I don't need to know. Like, there's no bullshit marketing. There's no crap in there. There's no computer system generated, whatever, timestamps. It's information that is super relevant that I need to know and have access for. So my vaccination was completed, and the appointment was confirmed, all the stuff that iterated what came directly out of the emails. So the communication loop was very, very clear, and I felt very much in safe hands here. And this is sort of the homepage dashboard. And it actually says that I was given 2 rounds of vaccination, and that's exactly the information I need. I mean, in some ways, this is the golden ticket, right? So now I can say I've been vaccinated and I have eligible access to go to different things. I can get on airplane rides. I don't have to necessarily wear the mask as diligently. And the rules and the system has changed based on this one screen as my proof. So here again is another proof of the vaccination in the same screen. On the left side, it sort of says, look, you just got vaccinated, and very clearly letting me know what to expect, and what to do if there are any adverse effects, and very clearly giving me guidance as to, you know, this is the lay of the land, and these are your expectations for getting this vaccination. And then there's some peripheral things that aren't quite so relevant, like adding a family member and then links to other COVID resources and things like that. But that's really tucked away. You know, this is the front and center stuff that I need to have, honestly, with me almost wherever I go. So they changed, like, another interesting thing about this is that the entire experience was actually mobile first. they changed it. And now this is on the website. Like, this is the desktop version. I can't really replicate the mobile version because now I have my logged in state and I don't want to screw it up by logging out. Like, who knows? I just want to keep it as is. So I feel very good about that. But when I first tried to click on the link that came in on the email from the registration, I couldn't actually sign up for it on the desktop browser. It was broken. The site was literally broken. And I, again, was hacking my way through it and couldn't do it. But then I was curious. I was like, gee, what happens if I just click on the link from my mobile phone? What's that going to do for me? And then sure enough, it led me through the process. So it's super interesting. Other thing to note that for some reason they were mobile first and they didn't really care about the desktop, which is also an interesting piece around this because, as all of us know, working in the space over the last year, people have become less and less mobile and more desktop. So, but for whatever reason, these guys decided to actually make the desktop experience broken and then release it on the mobile first. However, that's all been fixed, and these screens were just grabbed very recently. So even you yourself from wherever you are can go and experience this. You could also potentially download the app and just out of curiosity, just to kind of get some idea about, how clearly organized and how well it was designed, really. So now, it's basically giving you some instructions about 12 years old and older, and then the rules have changed. And really, it's a 3-step process. Well, I guess 2. In order to book your appointment, it really is just you're identifying that you're over 12, and you're identifying that you live in Orange County. So those are the only 2 qualifiers right now. So they're not even asking you, like, what do you do for a living or anything like that. You don't have to sort of lie about being a caretaker anymore. And then you select your date and you book it. 2-3 steps is done. So, and this, I just took some pictures while I was there because in true California sense, nobody gets out of their car, which is like great. I can't help but think that here we are in Orange County, only miles away from Anaheim, where Disneyland is. And so much of the experience down here is so like Disneyland. And I don't know if you've never been there as an interaction designer, as a service designer, experience Disneyland because they get it. They really understand cues and lines and pushing people through something and creating an experience, even in a very negative time, how to create this like very positive, welcoming experience. And I can't help but think that I kept on thinking this kind of feels like getting on the line in Disneyland a little bit. I mean, it was that smooth. So here you are in your car, you never really, and like there's a person there, you're going about 5 miles an hour, and they're there every checkpoint, checking in on you. Are you okay? Do you know what to expect? Do you know what's going on? Like their communication was so similar to the app. And I love that so much. It was like the same person wrote their scripts. It was right on brand and it was right aligned with expectations. And then, afterwards you get a thingy-majiggy sticker. I've been vaccinated. I got bragging rights here. And it was super interesting too, because like local food vendors were getting some marketing, buzz out of it and giving discounts on food items if you show proof of your vaccination, like more ways to encourage people to get vaccinated, and tying in with their marketing plans. And then like I was in New York last week and I got to go to my synagogue because I was vaccinated. So that was my main thing was, getting COVID is a very serious concern, but I knew, and I have a sense now that if you do not show proof of vaccination, you're not going to be able to go to things. You're not going to be able to do stuff you want to do. That's the hard line of it, so they're going to, would you want to be hanging out with people who aren't vaccinated? Think about it for yourself. So they're going to start to probably enforce proof of vaccination in order to fly on certain, to certain destinations or go to certain events, go to indoor events, certainly. And really just to get back to normal life, I guess, it's really the price of the ticket there is to get this vaccination. So now I guess I would like to open it up to the floor a little bit, and maybe we can somehow, hack this platform and get people to chime in on some questions and share some of your stories. How shall we do this? Shall I go through the chat? Let's go through the chat. How's that? Because I think some people have. Somebody's in Lisbon. Hello from Lisbon. Hi, Europe at night. Sorry I'm keeping you awake, but I hope it is worth it. Marvin from Brisbane, Australia. How's it going in Australia? Some of these places we just read about, like just the worst. Hey there, Peter. Hi.
Hello. So I raised my hand and Idyawati pulled me on the stage, and actually we can do that with a couple of people. So to those who don't know, I'm also one of the organizers. And to Janine's point, let's make it interactive and sort of let's all put in our thoughts. And I'm happy to sort of report on on the vaccination as it went in Jordan, where actually I got vaccinated there because I was staying there at the time. And it was really weird because the whole setup was way more sort of professional than I originally anticipated. And there was SMS alerts. There was an app, just like you're mentioning, which is also available as a simple website. And it also gave the same kind of information that you were mentioning, Janine, that you could look at, okay, what is my status? It was clear. What is the next step? I'm waiting, or this is my next vaccination. So that was very well done as well. And even the physical part was very well done, that I got an appointment. I arrived there. There was no queue practically, or hardly any, and extremely fast, extremely efficient. What I would point out that Janine, you mentioned around the communication, none of that really sort of streamlined and integrated part was visible. So the digital experience and the physical part weren't really connected in any real way. It really felt sort of disconnected from that perspective. But overall, the whole experience was really positive. And this is a vastly different setup than in the US. So I don't know if there's anyone else who went through a vaccination experience and would similarly want to say a few words as to that for them. And they can also, so what you can do if you want to, come on stage and talk a bit about it, is that you can raise your hand, and then Idyawati will pull you on the stage. And in the meantime, I will drop from the stage, and there's also a few questions there. So I think through those as well, if no one raises the hand, we can do some interaction.
Yeah. Well, Peter, quick question.
Sure.
What was the hurdle to get the vaccination? Are they offering it to anybody, or did you have to say?
It was funny because I usually have, I'll try to check if although I'm not sure it's showing, but I don't know if you know, I'm thinking of the English word. There's this graph that shows the age populations of a country. It's like a sort of a tree or a vertical bar chart. And it looks for aging countries, the way it looks is that it's usually shaped like this a bit. That you have a lot of middle-aged people, very few few young people, and of course, few old people. And for the US, it looks like this. For Switzerland, it looks like this. For many European countries, it looks like this. And for Jordan, it looks like this, because there's way more young people. So actually, there was a much smaller sort of rush for the vaccine. And there was a pre-registration, and you got a message a couple of days before, which gave you the time and the location, but you didn't know what kind of vaccine you're getting, and the vacation was pretty much random. And there was actually some kind of thinking, okay, like I hear that they're doing this vaccination here on this day, so I won't go to mine, but wait if I can get a chance to go there. So there was a bit of that in the play.
Interesting. Is there any kind of anti-vaxxer movement going on there?
I must admit I'm not as familiar with how this is going, but Not such a huge deal, I would say.
Uh-huh. Okay, because we have a lot of very interesting discussion here. Yes.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. We actually have anti-vaccine people in the local area here. Yes. Yeah.
What is their concern about getting it?
So there was actually a story of one person died. I think it's more of the hearsays after he got vaccinated. So a lot of people didn't want to register. It's about like 83% of the people don't want to register using the app, because the government here, they actually ask us to register ourselves on the mobile apps, and that is another issue because a lot of people in a rural area, they don't have access to the internet, and mostly the people on the local community here, they don't have mobile phones. They do have, but it's not a smartphone. So it's a bit different from your story. I mean, it's a bit frustrating over here. And also, when we go deep dive into the design feature of the mobile app, the app actually asking you, are you a robot? Like many times. Every time user log in, so it asks, are you a robot? So in at one time, it's like when people try to get registered, to get themselves registered, they have to fill in that like hundreds of times. So they have to tell like, I'm not a robot. I'm not a robot. So it's been like viral in the whole country. So it creates some kind of phenomenon. Wow. It's a tragic, I think it's a tragic moment at one point.
Tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. It would almost be better without the app if they just had like medical professionals going door to door and, you know, removing the digital layer if it is that broken or that making people feel that insecure.
Yeah, the government is doing that. They go by like a car and do some kind of announcement going into the village. So yeah, but there's another thing that I wanted to share. It's like some of the components in the application itself. There's no options for the disabled people, the special abilities people, and also the location cannot be changed or something like that. So there are lots of issues in terms of UX UI there. So yeah, so it's very important to have, like, you know, the UX UI community people to be involved in this kind of initiative.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that like we have these common platforms, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. You know, why can't this platform be common? You know, just licensed out to the country, and they, you know, obviously the language would need to be changed and some of the rules and the policies, but the platform itself, you know, why couldn't it be a universal interface and process?
And what really is puzzling to me as well is we've known that this time will come, and we've known it, you know, if not for 1.5 years, then at least for 6 months or even more, that at one point we'll have vaccines. And it took us until now to figure out what the whole system will look like. And even that is done more on a regional basis than on a global one. Whereas this requires vastly different kinds of competences than the other activities that have been done so far. So it could have been done in parallel, but it was just like a bad project management. It seems that it wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, I hope people weren't thinking I was going to talk about like how the vaccine was produced, you know, how it got distributed for free, you know, by the government, because a lot of that stuff is, who knows? I'm just like so puzzled. Like, it was completely free, and it still is completely free. The government is giving us this. You know, what does that look like? How is it distributed? You know, how is it distributed to places that need it, and how do they know how much, and how are they protecting the vaccines? Like all the sort of logistical questions to me are super fascinating. I hope somebody takes the ball here and does a service design case study on some of this stuff. Whoever works for some of these big companies, like I hope that they have the ability to be transparent and to share some of this learning.
It's also strange, and that'll be my last comment, and I'll drop from the stage, that this would have been a good opportunity for some servitization of the pharma business and the pharma companies who really just produce the product, to really step a bit into the service as well and sort of extend that a bit. But I haven't seen that happening. So if anyone has some more information on that, on how the pharmaceuticals have been extending just their vaccine products, interesting to hear. But I see there are some questions in the Q&A, so I'll drop and remain in the background.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Totally cool. Yeah, exactly. So when is a product or a product a service? Pharma especially, at some point they release the product and they're like, okay, fine, it's out of my hands. But when do we actually start buying directly from Pfizer? Why do we need a Duane Reade or CVS or wherever else you get your pharma product? And shouldn't they take responsibility in some ways for selling directly to a consumer? I mean, these are humongous issues around policy and other things, at least here in the States, and it would be super interesting to hear how other countries handle that. So in the meantime, we have a couple of questions. Shall I just go for it, Marvin?
Yes, sure.
Fox, how do we remain human-centered in service design in a COVID world where we kind of need to take human interaction out of the journey, particularly in hospitality? Oh. Well, you'll have to give me an example of this, because I believe that we need to, I understand. Okay, so humans can't show up because of the COVID fear to take care of people like in nursing homes. This is like obviously a humongous sore point without proper vaccination. And, I think in some level it's been, at least in my world, a super personal decision. Like, they haven't enforced or mandated that much here, which has been a gift. So people have been able to make their own decisions about what to do and how far they can go with it. Like, for example, I refer to my mother, 87 years old, in a senior community, and I continuously went to visit her. We did not separate. In fact, one of the photos there is me and my mom when she's in the mask and the hat. And I don't believe, I think that's another sad part of this. Like, I really think the human-to-human communication and interaction is vital, is so critical during this time. It's just, of course, taking the proper precautions. So, are robots the answer? Give it a wind-up toy? I don't know. That's a really good question, and I love this question because it makes us think about, like, the entire environment of hospitals, like the IoT in a hospital room or a nursing home. What's there that is digital to help take the place of a human being there to administer medicine or to keep someone safe? Great question. I would love to hear Marvin. Is Marvin there? Do you have any kind of insight into the answer to that question? Can we bring him up?
Marvin, if you want to, there is a hand raise at the bottom thing, and then we'll be able to put you on stage for that. I also wanted to add to that, like, especially when we're thinking about end of life, for all those people who, they're going through all these experiences, and then, like, how do we keep that human side of people's passing, I guess? That is a very hard question to think about. Hi, Marvin.
Hello, Marvin. Welcome on board.
Marvin, tell us where you're coming in from.
Hey, guys, coming in from all the way from Brisbane. Brisbane, Australia.
Wow, welcome. So tell me, like, the question that you're asking, like, do you have any personal context?
It was actually in relation to, I work in the university space here in QUT, which is one of our universities here in Brisbane, Australia. We had a partnership recently with MIT all the way in Boston, from Brisbane to Boston. We've got this strong partnership with Boston, MIT. And there was this innovation challenge that we put forward with our students across both campuses. And it was really a COVID challenge. Our client was Omni Hotels. And it was a little bit of a hackathon kind of challenge for our students, and a little bit of a 24-hour challenge as well, overnight challenge that the students had to work for consecutive nights, actually, to come up with solutions for this. How might we provide a better hotel experience for our clients and for their patrons. And it was interesting how a lot of the students actually brought in such kind of touching, kind of human elements to the robotic experiences that they were providing in the service. For example, the way students would provide this robotic interface as they would go into the foyer, and of course the way that a lot of the guests would feel a lot safer when they check in and they check out. And one of the notable innovations that the students came up with was the way that guests would be notified and be given affordances when they interact with the hotel without staff, when there are robots there, or when they get cued with lights and sounds. It's quite interesting.
Totally cool. Did you guys record any of this? Like prototype it?
Yeah, they only got to the prototype stage. That's the thing with university space. We kind of don't get to that fine nitty gritty end of actually building it. They do just get to the we've got a great concept here, but for the purpose of the competition, it pretty much stops there. But hopefully the client does pick up some of those projects. Yeah.
Cool.
It'll be interesting to kind of see how that goes, and I kind of posed the question in that with your beautiful and kind of and great insights in service design, how we make it as human as possible. How do we still do that in this very robotic and kind of clinical world where we have to stay apart and kind of wear these masks and have no facial expressions transferred, and and have that real language without being too offensive with each other in a very, very sensitive time. Is there time to kind of still have that really genuine human connection in this kind of emergency state that we're in the interactions anyway?
Yeah.
That's a 6 million
question. Good stuff. No, undoubtedly, especially people in the clinical space who are working in hospitals, people who are on the front lines, they themselves are very, very worn down. I know people personally who really just broke down, really, really tough. Too much, too fast, not enough tools, not enough resources, and really, people right out of school. Like, can you imagine? This is like your first experience out of med school, and really tough stuff. And I think a lot needs to be thought about too in terms of caring for the caregiver, how to be sure that they're supported throughout all this. All right, let's go on. Thank you, Marvin. Awesome issue and lots of stuff to think about. Holy, wow, our jobs are laid out. Let's hope these companies do continue to keep the human side and the human element, no matter how digitized or robotic things become. It's the people like us who are creating these things, and we need to put our best selves into it, into the designs, into the aesthetic, into the emotive qualities, into the communication loops, all of it. Here's something from Jay. What influence do you think the transmissivity, I know I'm mispronouncing that, and social distancing rules have had on the level of trust, our ability to connect with others? How do you think COVID rules can be optimized to reduce that impact, e.g. when we have to stand 1.5 meters apart. So yeah, no, trust, humongous, huge stuff. I mean, I was just in New York and like people are partying there like it's 1999, right? Like, I don't know, is anybody from New York? Any New Yorkers on the call with us? Like down in the West Village and East Village, and there's live bands and nobody has masks and people are just having a great time. I'm not sure what that has to say about trust or even wisdom, for that matter. Yeah, people are, but like during the heart of COVID, at least where I was, and I don't know what stages everybody is in here, because you guys, everyone has very, very different stories to tell, but oh my God, you don't even want to, like the trust thing it made you feel really much less than human, and going to a grocery store and, that awkwardness of bumping into someone, or you're both about to reach for the same container of milk and you're like, oh, it feels horrible. It felt horrible. Like that emotional toll, I think, was just so significant. And around trust, yeah, I mean, this is when you want to be sure that you have chosen the right community to live in, because you hope that the people around you, in your inner circle and your neighbors, are people whom you can trust. So this is stuff that really makes you think very carefully about where you decide to live.
I share that too. The social anxiety of being in a store, and they've lifted. Well, in here in LA or parts of LA, you still have signs outside the store that says you have to wear your mask, right? But then when you actually go in there, they're not enforcing that mask rule anymore, or like you're not really sure like how up to date you are in terms of like when did they actually lift it, and then when you see someone's like, well, are they vaccinated? Are they not? And it gives you some kind of like, can you trust, like you mentioned, like, can you trust that people in your neighborhood and in that area are following rules, or that like, or how, like, what is that atmosphere of people who follow, I guess, the anti-vaccination rules, or like, what are the protests? Like, what, like, you have this idea of like that area that you live in and the demographics, and then it's kind of interesting, like, you have to question all of that when it's just a simple mask thing. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just feel like there's something in there in terms of you have to question like your context every time you go to a place, right?
Yeah, like even a family gathering, like Christmas time this year. Does everybody remember? Oh, are you sure you're only going to have 7 people there? Are you sure that those 7? Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I think that guy was hanging out with this one over there, and I'm not sure that he's cool to be at the family dinner. What? Like, really? And this kid came down from college, and, are you sure, like, the kid didn't associate with that one over there and bring in the COVID to the house? And, all these questions, and you're asking your own family these questions. Like, yeah. What were those family conversations like? The arguments and like, what? No, I told you. I know I was involved in a couple of them, and super uncomfortable stuff. Really, really hard.
Yeah, and then it kind of answers Lacey's question as well too. She mentions she's in an area that struggled to digitize on a level of shops. Even any suggestion on how to help through service design to coordinate with local businesses and help them make those connections. So that's an interesting question. Like, how do we bring areas that aren't, I guess this is kind of going back to like way back in the beginning of your talk, Jenine, where when you're going through that vaccination, like there was a lot of reliance on mobile apps that kind of give people those messages. Oh, that it's ready, it's your turn now, and that sort of thing. But for those areas that aren't as mobile friendly.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe Lacey, do you want to step up and just give us some context into your question? I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Oh, she's in the chat. She can't unmic.
Oh, she can't. Okay, and then I struggled to. Where is she coming in from? Any idea?
I'm not sure. She's in Missouri.
Missouri?
Let me see if I can find it. See?
Huh. Yeah, I mean, maybe God, I don't know, because I mean, when the stores are forced to close down, so I guess her scenario is that, like, look, we had to close the stores, the bakery, the bars, the drugstores, the hardware stores in our local community. And these people were not ready to sell online. So therefore, they had a ton of inventory, a ton of products, and no customers. I'm guessing that is her scenario. And yeah, I mean, we heard this all over the place, right? All this inventory getting trashed, food in restaurants just getting sent to the garbage. Like, because people had to, it took a while for them to operationalize in a big way, not only seating outside, but also using all the delivery services and things like that. And if they were not selling online but you know what? Doesn't this go back to a little bit around the healthcare system or the pharma system, like treating product as service? So even though they're selling a product, it's also that they're providing a service. And I think, if we look at some of the questions up here, how might a service design approach help prepare for the next big thing to come? Starting to look at the full holistic kind of customer experience around a product as a full service. So helping these stores operationalize digitally, helping them operationalize and sell locally or physically, or even at a yard sale or outside or in a food truck or in a, whatever way they can bring product to people. They could imagine it themselves, whatever it is that this town does. But just to understand that no longer is a product just a product. Products are now really all needing to act like services. Otherwise, we won't be able to really have any sense of the next big thing to come. Oh, looks like we have somebody else coming on. Sonia, where are you from?
Hey, Jenine, I've been on your human service design before. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah. So this is great. And I wanted to also just bring up, we have a flu season that's seasonal. So we have another chance to utilize some of these lessons learned for the flu season that's coming up. And it usually starts somewhere, and the numbers are being reported all the time by the CDC, but somewhere between that 20th and 40th week of the year. And we're in that 20th week. So I think that, a lot of these lessons learned and everything that we're capturing here are things that we can start thinking about for how might we partner with some of these organizations, public health, businesses, supply chain management, all these other groups that may or may not have been brought into the process in warp speed the last time around.
Yeah.
Just a thought, maybe a little deep thought here on a 6 o'clock in the evening, but I think it's a great point that, when we do these things in public health, we often don't think about the other impacts and certainly, business continuity and how all those things happen. But, people who have had COVID are, they're also susceptible. So when it comes time for flu season, we can be proactive about it. And there are some other service design groups that are doing these hackathons and continuing to look into the problems. So I think we have an opportunity to use these lessons learned and leverage them in different ways.
Yeah, no, excellent. That is so true. And, people, I know in the States at least, like, we are very forgetful people. Like, we don't look in the past very often. People here are very, I guess, future focused. I remember after 9/11, New York was a mess. It was devastated. And how quickly it came back. And everybody thought the world would be so different and so changed. And, everyone just like really appreciate life and love each other a lot more and be less capitalistic or opportunistic. And it really didn't go that way at all. And, you know, I wonder, would anybody like to share, like, what are some of the positive things that might come out of this stuff? Is there, you know, I mean, I know there's a ton of positive stuff that could, I mean, it's been hard, and I know maybe it's too soon for some people to look at like the bright side of what's been going on, but are there any positive things that we could take away from it? I mean, there's probably quite a bit, like even this conference, us guys sitting here and talking about this, like this is a cool conversation. I love it. So what about like other countries representing? Do we have anybody else who in the final 10 minutes, 5 minutes want to share any other perspectives from like anywhere else in the world? Has there been any?
People.
What's that?
We have like 35 people.
No? Okay. There's a question here from Peter, which I think is interesting. Has there been any design to returning to normal that you know of, or do people believe will bounce back naturally?
Yeah.
Well, great question. I mean, I don't know if anybody's, like I mentioned, my experience in New York City last weekend. Yeah, I mean, different places are doing different things. I will say that. Like, again, I went to a synagogue and we were allowed to go in the first time in like 14 months. Everyone had to keep their masks on and we had to show proof of the vaccination. However, that may be, either a digital proof or the card that you've been vaccinated. And it gets down to that trust issue, right? Like, because they didn't trust. Like, you could say, I've been vaccinated, but nobody really trusted you. You had to show proof. So I think the trust thing is such a big one, and just like plain old moral and ethics, like human quality ethics and morals, like how we live our lives, like how the decisions we make, and is it just about us and gaining or just our own egos and stuff like that, or is it really about the common good of a community, of the people around me, of just everything? Does this go back to sort of just like living in a more just, fair way with your fellow humans and animals and nature even? I guess one of the positive things about COVID were that stream of amazing photography that came out. It shows like, the coyotes walking through San Francisco or Venice, Italy, where they showed all the fish swimming in the canals and all this nature just popping back because of the lack of air travel. And I thought that was like just amazing. And the fact that so many people just got out into nature and made do with what they had, maybe for a moment, the world stopped and said, do we really need to buy more? Do we even need any more of anything? Maybe everything we have is here, in our hearts, in our heads, in our homes, with our families, with our pets, with the nature, the flowers outside, the trees. So I think there was a moment, like a very brief moment of that. And then, Instacart started. And people realize they can't live without my, pepperoni pizza, or people realize they can't live without this and the other thing. And they, and I think, to me, I get so depressed when I think that like I'm protecting myself and my family and I can stay inside, but there's somebody there, like a lower class individual, that can take the risk and go shopping for me and deliver the food. Like, I have a problem with a lot of that. Like, and I don't mean to offend anybody on this call, but like, it just all of a sudden really set up that like bizarre class system that we wish didn't exist, and made me feel that like there are certain people that are so privileged that they don't have to go to a store and risk getting sick, but they can, if they have the money, they can pay that others will. And I find that extremely deeply disturbing. And that is really one step toward robotics and automation. Because in a way, what's the difference between like a robot delivering the food or some kid who's 26 years old, who needs extra money and to feed his family, who's delivering the food? Like, is his life any more important or valuable than yours as you pay this kid to deliver food for your family during COVID? So like, I think some of that stuff that got set up during COVID that I didn't notice as before COVID, maybe it existed, always has, but it just didn't seem like a fair playing ground.
We have comment from Buord. UX designer here. It's like he said that is what we needed. The world, I mean, the slower pace, that is what the world needed right now. It's like a break for the world.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, I kind of, oh my God, like driving and just to me, I was like psyched. Like you could drive, I could drive, I'm in Orange, I'm down here, I could drive up to Malibu, whatever, an hour. Like, I mean, the fact that some of us took advantage of it. And I will be one to say I did. I mean, I traveled, I was all over the place because like nobody else was. So it was like a pleasure to drive and to fly. And I thank God didn't get sick, and I did what I had to do. But like, I forgot what else I was going to say on that point. But anybody else like to share a little before we kind of wrap?
Yeah, Lacey,
I saw that Lacey was there. Yeah, I'm going to jump off stage from on. So
thanks, Sonia. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sonia.
Yeah, no, I mean, all this stuff, like so many pieces around this, so much stuff to learn from, and the quietness of it. I mean, there's a lot of kind of spiritual significance around just stopping. Oh, somebody did write somewhere in the chat about remote work, and they're starting to see the studies come through that if they start to make people go back to the office, people are going to simply quit their jobs. And power to that, no joke. Like I am like, wow, what a gift COVID has given us to work remotely. The office culture to me was just so vile and so horrible. I never thought I was in it in New York for 10, 12 years. It was just such a very, very, moments were sort of fun, but for the most part, it was never really done that well for tons of reasons. And who really misses that New Year's Eve party when the walk of shame happens the next day and you're like, wow, my boss. I mean, the behavior, right? So like, I think you know what? I'm really good with working from home. Like I'm really good working remotely. We actually, many of us as consultants have always worked remotely and it's been fine. To be honest, I know for myself, I'm way more productive working remotely, but I no longer need to present that as an argument to a boss. So I do appreciate that part of it. Thank God. I mean, look at it. I think many of us are going to look back on it and say, thank God for COVID. We don't have to schlep to an office. We don't have to go to traffic. We don't have to deal with the commute, and we don't have to deal with the politics and the nastiness that used to occur. So,
yep. I love the last portion of it. I think the politics is even worse than COVID.
Absolutely. I know. I will take that. Absolutely. The public humiliation when certain people, actually New York Magazine, if anybody has a chance to pick it up, like 3 issues ago, did a wonderful piece on the office culture. And they hit every one of these touch points. I'm good. I'm really good. And remember how disgusting and ugly the cubes were and the lighting was awful and the shared bathroom experience and and then eating your lunch and it's a messy, messy place. So I'm good with offices, but let's use them for another reason, not to work. What else? Anybody? 3 minutes left. Guys, if you enjoy this conversation or these types of conversations, please join my meetup, Humans in Service Design. This is kind of what we do. I'm not the only one who presents. We do have other people coming in, and then sometimes I get people together and we argue and we all share ideas, and it's usually a very, very interesting, very inspiring conversations. But I thank everyone very much for coming and seeing this through. Any other closing remarks?
Yes, just a little bit to all the audience, you can actually go back, just press on the button at I think it's left-hand side, on the left corner. You can check out the rest of the schedule left. Just for your information, we have a spin-off podcast, which is the 24 minutes of UX. So we connect the UX seekers and givers, just like you. For this, you can just go to the 24 minutes of UX.com You can register there, and you can meet up in there as well, or you can go to lounge and have a break, meet up other people as well. All right, Jenine, thank you very much. That was amazing.
You guys, be healthy, be safe. Oh, and I hope to see you guys at some point soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.